This is the second time he has joined us at Meetwest, and his attendance here this evening and previously is indicative of his support for this event, and more specifically for you, the businesses, our delegates. We deeply appreciate him taking time out of his very hectic schedule to join us here this evening. Would you please be upstanding and give a very warm Meetwest welcome to our Taoiseach, Enda.
Fairness Laura, the men with the chains. There are more chains here than I saw on the Olympic gold. There must be something on the horizon. Anyway, let me just say it's a privilege to be able to come home to Mayo here in the Knockranney in Westport. I actually had the privilege of turning the sod for this hotel back in 1996. Which was at that time just a bare hillside here, and the building that you're in began to rise up magnificently, look out over the town of Westport, Clew Bay, all that historic sites that I hope you've been able to see despite the mist over the last couple of days. Now, let me say, I could say a lot of things, but first of all I want to thank Mayo County Council, the Mayo County Enterprise Board and their colleagues in Roscommon and in Galway, and the Western Development Commission for all of your efforts to put this together. I know this is the third time. This is the biggest and the best to date. I know the face-to-face meetings, the connections, the proposals, the mentoring, the ideas, the acquaintances that you form are all part of the evolution of where we are and the movement where we want to be. I started this morning with the Zurich Insurance Company. They had 300 chief executives from all over the world in Dublin, some of them for their first time in Ireland. I followed that with a visit down to the Science Gallery in Trinity, where they're doing extraordinary work in terms of research and innovation with young people, researchers from different locations. 300 transition year students there today looking at synthetic life, looking at the issues that affect us all like fear, failure, fat and blood. Doing experiments with all these things, most interesting as to what the horizon in front is. Follow that by visiting the 25th celebrations of the acquaintance of Deloitte and Enterprise Ireland in Dublin Castle. 400 chief executives of businesses all over Ireland at that. And an extraordinary thing actually happened because they carried out a survey. And the funny thing was that 97% of the chief executives of the companies there agreed very strongly and that they were confident that this country would grow next year and the year after. Now, 97% of a result, that's like something you get from Iraq a few years ago in terms of the presidential election. I'm not sure how that survey was actually structured, but I understand that you couldn't give an answer unless you filled in the entire questionnaire properly, and that was the result of 420 Irish CEOs at that meeting. 97% said they had an absolute belief in Ireland's capacity to move from where we are to where we want to be. And three times as many CEOs believe that we will do that than just in a survey last year. So events like Meetwest here are all important. Now I'd like to say, you know, the privilege that I have of meeting so many people gives you an understanding of the way they look at us. We've come a long way in 2.5 years. We were blocked out of the international markets. Interest rates 15%. Confusion, uncertainty, lack of integrity, and no credibility because of the culture that existed at the time. Meant that the Troika came here with their bailout programme, which meant that Ireland went over that cliff. It had to borrow 64.5 billion when there were no tools to help us at a European level, and that burden has been borne by the Irish taxpayer since then, and has affected and impacted upon every single person in the country, their lifestyle, their businesses, the retail, manufacturing, everything. And that problem was never going to go away unless we fix it ourselves. And the credit is due to the people here, because what's important in politics is to listen, to understand that you must communicate the strategy and the plan that you have, where that's leading to, so that the people can see that progress is being made. And on this third budget, you now understand that it's part of a process to fulfil the mandate that was given to me 2.5 years ago, to sort out our public financial mess and to provide opportunities so that our people can get back to work. It's not been an easy journey to this point. I understand that, so do you. But I'm happy to say that the end of the programme is now in sight. That programme will end on the 15th of December. And we had 3 options as a government. The first was to exit the programme, in other words, let it finish without any precautionary credit line. The second was to apply for a precautionary credit line from the EU and the IMF. And the third was to apply for a precautionary credit line to the IMF on its own. Precautionary credit line is a sort of a safety deposit box. If you were driving from here to Cork, your car's in good shape, you fill it up with juice, and you put a 10-gallon drum in the back in case something might go wrong. You don't do that normally if you believe in yourself and if you're in good shape. So, because these things would require lots of conversation in other parliaments and would require conditions that you don't know about to be complied with, people might say, well, it only lasts for 12 months anyway. We're already fully financed until the second quarter in 2015. We already have the Eurozone buffer of 500 billion as a backstop if anything goes wrong in any other country. It affects all of Europe. So we decided, as an Irish government, on behalf of the Irish people, to make a clean exit when the programme ends on the 15th of December. And when it does end on the 15th of December, where do we find ourselves on the 16th? Well, we find ourselves on the 16th of December with the barrier that was around us because of that programme removed. And where are we then? We're back as a fully fledged member of the Eurozone without a barrier around us, which allows us to have the same opportunities, the same constraints, the same security, the same comforts, and the same opportunities as applies in all other Eurozone countries. And that means that the plan that we prepare ourselves, a short and medium-term economic plan, to say to people, what's next? Well, here's what's next. The signposts up ahead point to this country continuing on our way to having our deficit below 3% by 2015 and having an economy that is effectively run in the people's interests. That's what it's about, because if you don't have jobs, then you don't have a country. So, on the 16th of December, the rainbow is not suddenly going to shine and say, we're out of this for good, all is well. But what will happen on the 16th is that the message will be very clear. The shutters have gone up behind us, and we are not going back to that culture of greed, of speculation, and built on areas that were never going to stand up. And we've put arrangements in place that we won't go back there, because we're going to have the independent fiscal council, which is in situ for the last 2 years. The changes that are made at a European level in terms of banking union, banking supervision, capital directives, leading to the discussions which we must conclude about the ESM, which decided at the European Council level on the 29th of June last year would have the possibility of recapitalisation directly of Irish banks. And that means that the second message we want to send out is that to investors and to other countries, that Ireland is not going to lose its way. We are going to finish this job, and we're going to finish it in a way that people will have the opportunity to understand that their sacrifice and their pain and their difficulties will bear fruit in the end, in the sense of having an economy that will prosper and thrive, where jobs can be created, where their children can have opportunities in this country if that's what they want to do. And if that's not what they want to do, that we give them the opportunity to be well educated, they're fit to stand on their own against their peers on any platform around the world. Now, I think, taking into account what's happened in these last 2.5 years, where interest rates have fallen from 15% to less than 3%, to where AIB were back in the markets yesterday for unsecured loans in respect of 3-year money at relatively low interest rates, where our growth figures are projected by international independent commentators as rising to 2%, or slightly above next year, or just below, but rising in the right direction, where our exports have reached double-digit figures, unprecedented highs, where the opportunity now exists for multiple investors to come here because it's still an attractive location for investment, and where we've had 17 months in a row of decline in the live register. We are now, instead of losing 250,000 jobs in 3 years, 250,000 in a country this size, 3 years, we're now creating 3,000 jobs a month in the private sector and heading in the right direction. So all of that led us to believe that now is the right time and now is the right decision for the Irish people to stand on our own on the 16th of December and work with our colleagues in Europe to move on. Remember, if other countries in Europe are able to make progress in terms of the political decisions that they have to make, the Union, of which you remember 500 million people, will thrive and prosper and will benefit your region, Galway, Mayo, Roscommon, and the entire country as a consequence. Now, in the presidency which we conducted on behalf of Ireland and the European Union from January to June, I have to say that the momentum generated by the entire public sector was astounding, because this was the most effective presidency of the last 40 years. We got the budget through for 960 billion. We got the mandate to deal with the free trade talks between Europe and the US, with enormous potential, the two greatest trading blocs in the world. We got the agreement concluded in respect of the trade deal with Canada, which allows Irish beef in there. We dealt with the question of recognition of qualifications across the European Union. Skilled people here wouldn't have to have, different qualifications to work in Spain or anywhere else. These things were lying around for years and not dealt with. No more than the issue of recognition of patents, the opportunity that the single market holds for so many people. I have to say to you, if you sit around a table of 26 other leaders, ranging from those who govern countries with over 80 million people to very small numbers like in Luxembourg or in Malta or in Cyprus, and some are held in government by different groups of parties. You get different political philosophies. The old Eastern Bloc countries have a very different view about the agri sector than we have in Western Europe, and yet Ireland, because of the fact that this was our 7th presidency, was able to get a great deal of these difficult technical issues across the line in the interests of Europe and in our own interests. Bill Clinton came to Dublin 2 years ago. He said, you've got 500 million people within the Union. You've got another 500 million on the fringes of it. Many countries in North Africa growing at 5, 6 and 7%. When we see the potential of the agri sector, when we see the potential of the agri sector when quotas go in the next period, where exports can grow to double digits to over 12 billion in the next number of years ahead, when you see the fact that banks are lending to farmers as one sector because they see the opportunity coming up ahead, when you see the changes that have been brought about in the banking system, 2-pillar banks, the pressure on them because of new regulation from the central bank to lend money to small and medium enterprises, this is where we've got to be. And that's why I was grateful to our colleagues in Europe for understanding Ireland's position about the exit from the programme, and indeed grateful to the German Chancellery for agreement to supply technical expertise and support to our Department of Finance with the German AAA credit-rated development bank, KfW, for the proposition to allow credit to be available to Irish small and medium enterprises at very much lower rates than you can find now. That's where we need to be, because the lifeblood of job opportunities comes from the state opening doors with having access to credit so that people can invest and change. I know that thousands of business people are so constrained and have been so constrained over the last number of years that they've focused on maintaining the business, if at all possible, to the detriment of what you might be able to expand into, what new markets are out there, and what opportunities arise. And that's why, in the IDA end of it, in terms of the investment in here, that continues to be very strong. Pipeline is exceptionally strong, I have to say. And when they come here from abroad and they look at what Ireland offers in terms of young, creative minds, these people say, that's the place you need to be. And that's what's happened with the cluster developments, of which Galway is a prime example. There's so many areas for medical devices, the largest cluster in Europe now. The recognition of the capacity of the university and the colleges of technology around the country to do these things. But it's also important that we understand from a longer perspective that the entire provincial areas of the country have to benefit. You can't have jobs in every quarter unless you have investment for infrastructure. And that means broadband, it means water, it means access, and it means power. And while people say to me, you're the Taoiseach, it's your job to put jobs all over the country, we haven't yet managed to supply power without cables. And while we have all of the discussions, some of them ranging from hysterical to being very rational in terms of pylons and gas pipes and turbines and roadway development, children, do they have to go to New Zealand or to the far side of America or other places around the world if they don't want to go? Can we not provide them with the opportunity here? So I see so much opportunity coming now from what's available from Europe and what the States do. I have to say, the priority of this government for 2014 will be a relentless pursuit on jobs, because that's what it is. When you ask people in the privacy of their homes or their rooms or wherever, when you meet them, what do they want? What do they want? Is it the normal threads of humanity about, peace and love and prosperity and compassion? These are all fundamental human values. But everybody wants a job, and everybody wants a good job. And not everybody can have a good job unless they have the opportunity to change direction, to advance, to upskill, see the opportunities. The RDS at the Web Summit, 10,000 creators, 10,000 innovators, 10,000 thinkers, 10,000 young people who are creating and changing the frontiers that are coming at us. Quite extraordinary energy coming at them. And the analysis clearly shows now that the big employers in the next decade will be the creators of young companies that we've never heard of products that we've never dreamed of services that were never thought of, because when they press the button, it goes global. And those young children in primary schools and secondary schools around Ireland now, who are part of the 227 clubs that are doing Coder Dojo, who are writing the code language for computers, who understand in a way that we never thought of, that we were never taught. And they make the robots work, they make the robotics happen, they make things change. I was in a school just over the road the other day, in St. Gerald's indeed, where they've won 4 awards year on year because of the teacher who came in through the private sector and is teaching them the code writing, millions of lines of code that changed the world. And there they were with their robots and robotics that are normally the work of complex challenges for third level students, and they're doing it on there. These are the people who are changing the world as we know it. And it's in there the big numbers of employers and employment is going to be. And that's why Ireland is leading. And that's why the others want to come here, because they recognise the creative talent and the imaginative qualities of our people. So Enterprise Ireland, I have to say, in dealing with the companies, the 400 companies in the region here, I know you had contributions from Pat, who's a wonderful man here in Allergan. I met with the board out in California. I met them when they came here with Mr. Herbert, the founder of Allergan over 50 years ago, and we were very happy to see the massive investment of $350 million here in Westport for the 4th Botox plant. Not that you'll ever need that plant yourself. The world. And Tommy from over the road, a young entrepreneur. There's a man who saw an idea. There's a man who recognised in a practical sense what he could do, and he's exporting to many countries and will in the future. You're looking at somebody who's going to go up the line in terms of business. And down to Adrian here, this is something else, let me tell you. He's got ideas that are quite extraordinary. And I know he's secured assistance from the Enterprise Ireland Fund, because the quality of what he does is reaching out to other countries, and his company are going to go from strength to strength. And Martin keeps our bellies full with bread that goes all over Ireland, and the O'Hara's are a wonderful organisation and have been of the O'Hara's, I might say. I know them for very many years. And I might just say that when I went down to Foxford 2 years ago now, to do a little walk across the hills for Hope House, which is a very important entity in our county here, when I was in with Sister Dolores afterwards having the soup and the sandwiches and all the rest of it, you know, she said, O'Hara's is down the road, and every morning for 18 years that company has supplied this premises with free bread. These last two budgets were focused on prizing open the doors of jobs and confidence. That's why Michael Noonan put in 500 million in this most recent budget for small and medium enterprises. That's why we've changed the rules here in terms of the facilities that are available for entrepreneurs. That's why we need people to talk to each other. That's why Meetwest is so important. You know, the idea they're doing in Galway, what are they doing in Roscommon? I was going to Sligo the other night at the Chamber of Commerce, and Minister Perry's here, who has responsibility for small business. People are talking to each other. They understand the power of collegiality here. Get the ideas from other places and implement them. Be more effective. Listen to the bigger companies who are prepared to mentor half days a month for nothing. So look at your company. Let me give you a bit of guidance here. This is what you should do. So what we want to do is to give the opportunity for people to better themselves. We'll publish our medium-term strategy in mid-December. That's set out the road up ahead for us. So, in the sense of having, we know the strengths we've got, but to build on those, it's a frustrating thing in so many ways. That when you see things that should actually be moving faster and they don't, you get a bit annoyed sometimes. That's why I chair 8 cabinet subcommittees myself. Starting next Monday morning again at 8 o'clock and go right through until 6. And that means that the public sector and ministers are obliged to be back in every month with issues that they have to have resolved. And if they haven't resolved them, well, then there's a problem that we need to know about. But it does focus on getting things through. You see, one thing I have learned is this: the remit of the politician is for the duration of your cabinet period. That's 5 years under the Irish Constitution, if some earthquake doesn't happen in between that blows you off course. But given the fact that this is a very stable government, of course, I say to people, well, the election's going to be in April 2016, so put that in your book and don't worry about it until then, because we're going to stick it out. So, you get to that far, what can you do? The public servant has a different remit. He or she has got a 30-year remit, because they're going to be there long after the government's change. So if you say, I want this major road developed from Westport to Castlebar and on up to Strokestown to satisfy Pat O'Donnell and here and Zimmerman frames, you might be saying, I need this done in the next 2 years. And you know, some people in the general service could say, well, sure, I mean, look, it doesn't really matter because of 10 years or 15 years. Like O'Donnell won't have the chance, and neither will Kenny. So you got it, you know, put the ball on the penalty spot and bury it while you can. And that means that you must follow through on the proper processes and see that things are done properly in the longer term interest of the people. One other thing I want to say is this. I recognise that we have the best demographics of any country in Europe for the next 25 years. But we have to have an education system that becomes more and more flexible. That's why the project mathematics change is important, so that young people, inquiring minds, can understand the reasons behind the numbers. That's why I'm glad to see that people like Mike Feerick of Galway, involved in the diaspora movement, has set up, after I challenged him, in Allison.com with 300 short videos of Irish teachers showing students for free on the net the understanding of the mechanics of project mathematics so that they get as a backup to their teachers or whatever else. These are very important movements, because out of that will undoubtedly come the creator of the next Google, or the creator of the next Facebook, or the creator of the next Twitter. They're in the system now. It is the responsibility of good politics to open the doors and let those young minds flourish. And one of the things that I really am interested in, government have set out here the capacity and the opportunity to have technological universities. And some of the ITs have banded together in sort of a forum to make that even stronger. If they don't do that, the world will pass them by, because it's moving so fast. And that means that Galway Mayo, Sligo and Letterkenny have got to get together, have got to talk to each other about it, what it means. If a student can start in Letterkenny, finish in Galway, whatever it is, the relationship with the university is very important, and the relationship with UL in Limerick is very important. But the West Coast Corridor is one that can actually adapt in very niche and specialist areas of education that will stand to thousands and thousands of young people for the next 50 years. Well, that won't happen. I can't drive it unless they sit down and talk to each other about the important criteria that must be met there. And if that's not followed through, then it can't happen. And that's where we need to be. That our young people, your children, your grandchildren, have to have the opportunity to have access to the best. And I see that in so many places around the country. So, when I want to say to you that we've got, you say to a TD or whatever, well, the next election is in 2016. You say, well, gee, that's a long time away. Then you say, well, actually, it's only about 126 weeks. What did you say? Like, there's nothing to frighten the politician, like give them the little tinge above the navel there, and it's that word called election. So I say to all the international people, look, we're looking at a very stable country here. This outfit was given the biggest majority of any government in the history of the state. And if it was also given the biggest mess that ever happened economically in our country since 1922. And we've come a long way with the people in sorting that out. And when we get out this gate, as far as I'm concerned, we're not going back. The shutters are gone up. So we look forward, onwards and upwards.